April 15th, 1944. Fort Knox, Kentucky. The cold steel gates slide open, not to a battlefield, but to a place of strange contradictions. Nurse Elke Müller, freshly captured and now a prisoner, steps cautiously across the threshold of the U.S. Army Medical Hospital. The sun falls pale through the tall windows, glinting off rows of spotless beds and humming modern equipment she has only heard rumors about. Elke's hands tremble, not from the chill, but from a tangled storm of suspicion and disbelief. She had heard the stories from comrades. U.S. medical care was brutal, indifferent, a tool of propaganda to break enemies, or worse, a lie. Yet here she is met with quiet efficiency, gentle voices, and an unyielding diligence that feels nearly humane. As she watches American nurses tend to wounded soldiers with a tenderness she never expected, Elke's mind races. The sterile scent of antiseptics mingles with faint echoes of distant gunfire. A stretcher groans, footsteps quicken. Urgency, but not panic. Overhead, a sign reads, "Blood plasma storage. Preserve life." A phrase that had seemed foreign on propaganda posters back home. Behind the scenes, officers in crisp uniforms meticulously catalog supplies and strategize medical interventions. Major John Thompson, supervising the ward, moves with practiced calm. His eyes flicker with the weight of battlefield losses, yet hope threads through his commands. Hope fueled by innovations like preserved blood plasma and the miracle of penicillin. Elke feels a shift within her. Things she once accepted without question begin to crack. Could this be the truth? A hospital that saves lives indiscriminately, even for those marked as enemies? The war may rage beyond these walls, but here the battle is against death itself, and the rules appear painfully clear. Every life matters. In this moment, Elke's beliefs begin to fracture, piece by piece. April 20th, 1944. Just days after her arrival, Elke walks the bright corridors of the hospital again, this time guided by Lieutenant Sarah Reynolds, an American nurse with steady hands and an assured tone. The air hums with purpose, punctuated by the distant murmur of radio orders and occasional sighs of relief. In a side room, Elke beholds what she will remember as the heart of this hospital's secret weapon, a refrigerated cabinet lined with bottles of blood plasma. She peers close, hesitant but curious. Lieutenant Reynolds explains in clipped, precise English, "This is blood plasma, the lifeblood of our medical advances. Keeps soldiers alive until they can get proper care." Elke's eyes widen. Her knowledge of medical care from the front lines in Europe tells her that such things were scarce, precious. Here, plasma was stored, cataloged, and quickly administered to those bleeding out from the most devastating wounds. She watches as a medic carefully threads a needle into a soldier's vein, transmitting this clear, crimson lifesaver directly into his body. At home, where shortages meant improvisation and loss, this sight feels like science fiction. Charles R. Drew's work, which Elke had only heard through whispered Allied broadcasts, is real here. The Blood for Britain program, designed to supply plasma to the front lines, had now taken a step further, saving lives in hospitals like this far from the battlefield. She hears the murmurs among the American nurses, pride mixed with exhaustion. 300,000 aircraft, someone says. Millions of plasma units shipped. Numbers, once dismissed by command as Allied propaganda, now glued to each patient's survival. Elke's heart tightens. It's not just the technology, it's the commitment behind it. This hospital doesn't just patch up wounds, it fights death with tools and dedication she never imagined. The lie she was told about the enemy's cruelty feels larger by comparison. Outside, the distant sound of marching soldiers blends with the soft clinking of instruments. Elke looks away, the weight of new truths pressing down her old convictions. May 2nd, 1944. The ward is quieter now, dimmed in late afternoon light. Nurse Elke Müller moves carefully between beds, each occupied by men whose lives are hanging by the thinnest of threads. Here she encounters the true marvel of American medical science, penicillin, the miracle drug whose name she had only heard whispered in fearful awe back home, now fills this place with hope. She watches as Corporal James Whitman, a battle-worn medic, administers the thick white liquid to a patient ravaged by infection. "Watch this," he says softly. "This drug turns pus to clean flesh. Without it, well, you don't want to know." Elke sees swelling recede, eyes brighten, and men who were preparing for death begin to grasp at life.
Rumors of penicillin's mass production flood her thoughts. Over 2.3 million doses prepared for the D-Day invasion alone. Factories working day and night to keep the supply endless. The drug had transformed battlefield medicine, turning infections from death sentences into mere obstacles on the road to recovery. But it's not just the medicine that stuns her. It's the care, the nurses' gentle touches, the patience in their eyes. Even here, among the wounded German prisoners under U.S. care, the kindness never falters. Elke's fingers twitch as she watches this compassion, unsettling her deepest fears. As whispers circulate about the science behind penicillin, Elke feels a crack in her resolve. Could such mercy exist in the heart of the enemy? Her glance meets an African-American nurse's steady, unflinching gaze, and for a moment, words fail to capture what silence conveys: shared humanity beneath the war's cruelty. "Mein Gott, what have we been told?" Elke murmurs under her breath. The walls that once held her beliefs begin to crumble, replaced by a perplexing new reality that refuses to be dismissed. Outside, distant sirens echo faintly, a constant reminder of the war outside these walls. Yet inside, life fiercely insists on itself. May 10, 1944. Deep within the facility, now doubling as a POW hospital, Nurse Elke Müller approaches a ward filled with German prisoners of war. Their faces etched with weariness, they rest on neatly made beds, wrapped in clean linen she hadn't expected here. The air holds the faint scent of fresh linens and the quiet hum of ventilators. Elke notices the careful attention given by African-American nurses, part of the U.S. Army Nurses Corps, who move with confident grace between beds. There's no distinction made between soldier or enemy here. All are patients deserving dignity. Conversations hum softly in English, German, and sometimes broken exchanges that bridge gaps once solidified by hate. In a brief pause, Major John Thompson catches Elke's eye. "We follow the Geneva Conventions here. Care for the wounded comes first, always." The words strike her with unexpected force. She glances over to a fellow German patient receiving a blood transfusion, and then back to the nurses, their expressions focused and compassionate against the war's brutal backdrop. A young German enlisted man, barely more than a boy, catches Elke's glance and manages a weak smile. "Thank you, Schwester," he whispers in hesitant German. The silence between them stretches, a shared humanity rising like a fragile bridge over the chasm of conflict. Elke's hands, once clenched tightly around her disbelief, relax just barely. The loud propaganda about brutal Allied treatment seems hollow, challenged by the quiet goodness she witnesses daily. Outside, the distant echoes of war continue, but inside, these walls, hope pulses stubbornly alive. June 1, 1944. The war rages on beyond the hospital walls, but within, Nurse Elke Müller stands quietly by a window, light bathing her face in a cold glow. The pages of her life's beliefs lie scattered behind her, like the autumn leaves outside. She thinks of the journey that brought her here, From the front lines on the Eastern Front to this stark American hospital where humanity persists despite the horrors beyond. The faces she's tended, the hands she's held, both friend and foe, both have reshaped a worldview once unyielding. Elke knows the propaganda that once steeled her heart was a fortress built on fear and lies. The staff here work tirelessly, healing wounds inflicted by a war not of their choosing, offering care without question. Her eyes tighten as she recalls the African-American nurses, whose dignity and strength defied the segregation she'd known, and the humbling innovations that kept so many alive: blood plasma, penicillin, and a spirit of relentless compassion. Her hands, steady now, fill a syringe carefully as she whispers to herself, "This is the truth." A faint breeze stirs the curtains. Outside, distant planes roar overhead, shadows passing across the sky like the relentless passage of time. The war will end, but what remains will be this fragile recognition that even in the darkest of conflicts, the light of humanity can endure, quietly shattering the beliefs forged in fear. Her journey is far from over, but Elke Müller is changed. The truth she has witnessed in these halls will echo long after the last shot is fired.